Good morning and welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour. Today, I have a special guest with me who is a master of Reiki, Judith Wade. She is a new friend. I met her through another colleague of mine who is also in the health and wellness sphere. And so Judith comes to us today to talk to us about the practice, the Japanese practice of energy healing called Reiki. Now, Judith has been a practitioner for over 21 years, and she uses Reiki daily on herself, but she helps people all over the country because you can do this method of healing virtually, which I was unfamiliar with before I met Judith. So very excited to meet her and learn all about her. So Judith, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So why don't you tell us how you got into Reiki? Kind of what is your story that led you here?
Okay. Well, that phrase, what you resist persists, applies to me getting into Reiki and learning Reiki. But I was at a presentation about aromatherapy, which is using essential oils. And there was a lady there also talking about Reiki.
Okay.
And so afterwards, we started talking, and she needed a brochure put together. So we decided to do a trade. I would do her Reiki brochure in exchange for Reiki. So I did the brochure, and then she said, okay, my next class is, and then she gave the date. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to take it. I just want to get on your table and get a session. She goes, oh no, I think you'll use this intuitively. I think you'll use this in the future. I'm like, no, really, I don't want to learn it at all. I just want to get, because that sounded easier just to get up on the table.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't take no for an answer. So I just said, okay, I'll take it. I'll take your class. And then after I took it, I was hooked. And like a month later, I took the second level. And then I waited like a year to integrate the first and second level before I became a Reiki master and teacher. But she's right. I use it today in my business, and I'm really glad that she was persistent for me to learn it.
Yeah, she must have saw something in you and knew that you would be a great practitioner of it. So now in your business, you work with people, and I also know you do stuff with animals. Do you use the Reiki with animals, or is that something separate?
I can use the Reiki with animals.
Okay.
Mainly how I've been using it is I do animal communication.
Okay.
So during the session, I will use the Reiki to kind of calm that animal down and get the animal centered so they're more open to giving me information.
Interesting.
But it can be used for animals just straight Reiki, without the
Really?
communication.
Okay. So it's a nice way to combine two different skills that you have.
Right.
That's wonderful. So why don't we take a step back and dive into what is exactly Reiki? So some people are not familiar with it. I know I wasn't very familiar with it a couple of years ago. So can you just kind of go into the history of it a little bit, or what it is, all those things?
Yes, it was developed by Dr. Usui. And it developed in Japan probably around the 1920s. And he had students that came to him asking about how to, they wanted to learn how to heal. So he researched like Buddhist teachings, and that had a lot of information in it for the healing process. But the symbols that you receive in Reiki that, activate the person as a practitioner, and the symbols that you use during a Reiki session, he actually got those through meditation. So it was a combination of Buddhist teaching and the meditation, but it's not connected to Buddhism. It's just a universal energy technique that people can use. And one of my teachers had me put together my little 30-second, elevator speech, because when people ask you, what is Reiki? There's so much to try and to describe. So like in a couple sentences, but then I can go further. It's a facilitated energy technique. So it's being facilitated by a practitioner, and it, eases tension and stress in the body and just supports the body on all levels, emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So like that's like a kind of a concise way to explain it.
So is it a transfer of energy from the facilitator to the recipient, or is a facilitator taking the energy of the recipient and shaping it differently?
It is, the practitioner is a conduit. So like the Native
Okay.
Americans talk about the hollow bone. So
Mm-hmm.
basically you're letting the Reiki energy flow through you. But
Mm-hmm.
and the Reiki energy is basically chi, prana. It's the life force energy. When I was trying to explain it to my boyfriend, he goes, "Oh, like the chi and tai chi." And I said, "Yeah, that is similar. It's like the energy force that's in all living things, whether that's a person, you know, animals, rocks, plants. Um, like when a flower dies off, I guess the spirit of the flower is, not present anymore, but the shell is. So it's that life force energy being
Okay.
brought through the practitioner to the person.
Okay.
So I'm not using my energy. Um, I'm not the person, like their energy is not involved either. It's just like a
Okay. A separate. So it's
separate.
different than like chakras where it's energy swirling around a person. So this is a different energy. It's a life force energy, I see. Okay.
Right. But Reiki does work with the chakras though to
Okay.
balance them, but
It does
it's
help.
separate. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you have this life force energy that's going from, you're taking it from you as a practitioner to the recipient.
Right.
So what is that process? Like what exactly happens during that process?
Okay. Well, Ray actually means guided, and Ki is the life force energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Reiki kind of has a consciousness, a healing consciousness of its own. So as the energy is moving through me, it is seeking out like imbalances and blocks within the person. So that might be physically, it might be a backache, emotionally. Um, Maybe they're dealing with trauma or a crisis, and there's going to be an imbalance in the body. So the Reiki is seeking that out, or even
Okay.
mentally,
Yeah.
like racing mind. And it gives a person the amount of Reiki they need and where it's needed. So I
Okay.
could be working on I could have my hands on someone's head,
Mm-hmm.
but if the Reiki is needed in the heart, it's going to flow to the heart.
Okay.
It's kind of like a pothole analogy. If you had
Mm-hmm.
potholes on the street and you threw a bucket of water onto the street, the water is going to gravitate to those holes, and those holes kind of represent the imbalance in the
Okay.
person,
Okay.
whatever, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Got it. Okay. So basically, then when the Reiki goes into the area that's needed,
Mhm.
what does the person feel? Do they feel anything?
When I teach Reiki, I'll ask people, so what did you experience?
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody experiences it differently. So they may feel something. If a person's more inclined to feel things, they might feel like some tingling in the body. They might feel even some warmth, in their body, or they may feel like energy, like actually moving down through the arm or the
Okay.
legs. But people also may have a memory of something, or they may see a color, or like maybe a song comes up
Mm-hmm.
that reminds them of something, or that's connected to whatever emotionally is going on, or a
Okay.
memory of someone. So everyone experiences it differently. And part of the experience, it could be like you're just feeling peaceful and calm. And what happens is like the transformation, the change comes later. So someone may think, oh, nothing happened. But then a week later, they notice I've had a shift in the way I see things, or I've had a shift in some of my beliefs. I'm thinking more positively now. So that could be part of the experience that doesn't happen right on the table, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
And then, like, let's say you have your hands on their head
Mhm.
and it's flowing to different parts of their body and they're feeling things. Are
Right.
you sensing that right now, or are you just focusing on facilitating the life force going into them, and then wherever it goes, it ends up and you're not really sure? Or do you sense where it's going?
I do both. I'm letting the energy flow,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also sensing where it's going into the
Okay.
body.
Okay.
And I do something called a scan of the body. So,
Mm-hmm.
trying to see if I can get my hand up here. I'm
Yep.
just scanning my hand across the body
Okay.
along the chakras. So I'm just looking for any kind of difference in what I feel other than a smooth movement, you know. So I may get to the heart and my hand may actually drop and it feels heavy. So I will tune in to that, to the heart chakra, and just kind of ask the question of myself, so what does this relate to? Because me as a practitioner and many practitioners, we're getting insights to the imbalances or the blocks, like what might be going on. And then
Okay.
after the session, we can, share some of that and help them navigate or give them tools through some of these imbalances and blocks.
Okay. That's
Like
fascinating. Okay.
I'll give one example because it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to kind of sometimes get your head around. Like
Yeah.
this one lady, I was telling her, I said, well, emotions could come up, you know. I said a lot of times people are just like calm and sometimes they fall asleep. But I said emotions can come up. So I started working on her and I was on the heart chakra or the heart area,
Mm-hmm.
and she just started crying.
Oh.
And so after this session, we were talking about that. I said, well, there's some heaviness in your heart. It feels like grief. And she said, now that I'm thinking about it, this is the anniversary of my sister's death. And it was like just a year ago that her sister had
Oh.
passed um, through some kind of disease. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So she was still, the Reiki was helping her grieve,
Mm-hmm.
and remember her sister.
Yeah.
Um, but at the time she was like, I'm not even sure why I'm crying,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
Reiki did. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And it allowed an emotional release, right?
right.
That's wonderful. So, what are all the different places where you put your hands on a person? Like, is the
Okay.
head, or what kind of what? Walk us through what that whole experience looks like.
Okay. Well, the Reiki, I'm like aligning or balancing the chakras. So my hands
Mhm.
are going to go to where the chakras are, but I'll take a step back and kind of explain what the chakras are. They're energy centers within our bodies. And a
Mhm.
lot of times they just look like, if they're on a drawing, they just like look like a lotus flower or a circle. But those energy centers, when they're moving at the right speed,
Mhm.
then that area is balanced.
Okay.
But each chakra relates to something physical and emotional.
Mhm.
So the solar plexus is yellow, and that is in the stomach area. And that relates to confidence, self-esteem, willpower. So if your solar plexus is off, not balanced, you could have digestion issues because in that area, that's where your intestines are. And, but it could be stemming from lack of self confidence. Like the Reiki is going to go to the root of the issue. If you
Mhm.
were having like digestion issues
Mhm.
and I'm trying to, it's, and then like you took an acid or something like that, that would just like put a band aid on it. But the
Yeah.
Reiki is going to look at what emotion is behind that digestion issue. And so it
Mhm.
will help not only the digestion, but also go deeper into healing the self-confidence issue.
Okay. Wonderful. So, when you see someone in person, do
Hmm.
they lay down on a table like a massage table, or are they sitting? What kind of position are they in?
Yeah, I have a massage table that I use, but
Mhm.
like when I teach Reiki, I tell people they could just be on a couch, on a chair,
Okay.
just so they're comfortable.
Mhm.
Because I don't want my students to think, oh, I have to go out and buy a massage table.
Yeah.
But when I work on someone, they're on the massage table, and like the head is the crown chakra, so I'll be working on
Mhm.
the head.
Mhm.
The eyes, I'll put
Mhm.
my hands over the eyes. The throat area is one
Mhm.
area, so I have my hands above the throat, not on, because
Mhm.
people might think you're choking them.
Yeah.
And then the heart area, the stomach area, like the hip
Mhm.
area, and then like arms, legs. So it's just kind of working your way down the body during a session.
So sometimes you actually put your hands physically on someone, and then some areas you just hover over them. Is that right?
Yeah, like the throat
Okay.
area,
Yeah.
like
Throat
that.
and eyes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they're laying on their back, correct?
They can be face up and face down. If I do an hour session, I have kind of face up, face down. If it's a half an hour, I just have them face up.
Okay. Wonderful. And as they're going through this, they're just kind of just taking in whatever's happening, whatever's going on. Are they giving you feedback during this session, or is it just silence during the whole time?
Usually it's just silence. I think
Okay.
people are pretty relaxed and almost like in a meditative state. So afterwards, then we'll have a conversation of things I felt. Like I felt your heart chakra was blocked or your solar plexus,
Okay.
and I feel like it maybe could relate to this. Sometimes I get images. A lot of
Mhm.
times, since I work with animals, I get a lot of animal totems that come
Oh.
up, and
Oh, wow.
Native Americans have this
Yeah.
thought that each animal mirrors back to us different characteristics of themselves that is within us. And
Mhm.
the animal totems also have, guidance that they provide. um, like a robin is kind of a sign of new beginnings because
Oh,
it's a
okay.
springtime thing.
Yeah.
um, a lion could be courage. Dogs represent loyalty, so if I see a dog when I'm working on
Mhm.
someone, it might be, are you being loyal to yourself? Are you being loyal to your truth? So like
Yeah.
those are some things that might come up that we discuss
Okay.
after the session. Or I may feel like a heaviness on the right leg or the knee, and maybe they've had surgery in that knee, and
Yeah.
so we just kind of have little conversations afterwards. And
Yeah. That's wonderful. And then is it a one-time experience, or do people come once a week, once a month? How does that happen?
I have one client, she comes like twice a month, like every other week. I think a
Mhm.
lot of people have a tendency to come when they're in like crisis mode,
Yeah.
but Reiki is great for like preventative and just keeping
Okay.
yourself balanced. There
Okay.
was a young teenager, and he had learned Reiki, and he goes, I would do it on myself every day. And he goes, and he goes, I didn't notice a lot of changes because I guess I was balanced. But when I would forget to do it, then I would notice things were going on. So he goes,
Yeah.
it was telling me like this actually is working. And
Right. Yeah. Sometimes that happens that way. We don't realize something's working until it goes away, and it's like, okay, time to get back into that. Many
right,
aspects of life. So it can be all different kind of levels. People do it once or multiple times or on a schedule. So that kind of brings me into, what are some of the conditions or circumstances that would lead someone to think, you know what, I need to look into Reiki and find a practitioner? Like, what are just the wide variety of ways?
oh, okay. Well, I had one client who she had her own business, and she also was like into publishing and things like that. So she specifically came to me just to calm down her mind, because she said my mind's always going, it's racing, I can't turn off, and I never really have any peace of mind. So she
Yeah.
actually came to me just to calm down her mind so it wasn't thinking all the time. um,
Yeah.
so that was one example. There was another woman who was going to have knee replacement surgery, and she was also in she was also a writing teacher for me.
Mhm.
And I said, well, I can send Reiki long distance.
Yeah.
Just let me know what time you're going to be in surgery, what time you'll be out. And so I gave her Reiki long distance during her
Okay.
surgery. And she
Okay.
said that afterwards, she says, I woke up fresh, not cold, like ready to eat. And I've had my
Yeah.
fix out. And I know after I woke up at a surgery, I was groggy, I was cold, I was not ready to eat. But
Yeah.
she felt like that helped move that
Good.
process, move her through that more gently.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I had someone who I was doing Reiki out at a song school in Colorado. And because I had a massage table, the students at the song school, well, one thought I was going to do massage. She had a backache. And so she got on my table and I just put my hands on her gently, no massaging. And afterwards, she's like, got to tell you something. I thought you were going to massage me, but the Reiki actually, my backache is gone. So it
That's
actually can help
awesome.
physically. It could
Okay.
help emotionally, like that
Okay.
woman moving through the grief of her sister.
Mhm.
It can even help with taking tests. Um,
Okay.
Reiki can help you access the information you already know. There was a lady doing a sign language test, and she goes, I just get so nervous when I take tests and I know the information, but it just escapes me. So I did a
Yeah.
Reiki session on her, and the Reiki was just helping her access and be calm, you know, being calm to access the information she already knew. And she goes, I
Yeah.
got an A on the test.
Yeah.
So there's like lots, and I used it on myself right before this session because I couldn't find your email with the Zoom link. It was in my spam, and I
Mhm.
was like all nervous, and I was like, wait,
Oh.
do Reiki on myself, calm
Yeah.
myself down. And that's when I
Yeah.
figured out, look into the spam folder.
Yeah.
So it can be used for so many. I used it
Mhm.
on my garden last year, and my plants did better than the neighbors' plants.
Mhm.
I didn't have as much trouble with insects, and
Okay.
my plants were bigger.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's neat. So, is there any limitations to it? Like, are there cases where you can't use it, or is it pretty just open?
it's pretty open. As I said, Reiki always gives you what you need. So
Mhm.
as a Reiki practitioner, you can't be attached to the outcome or what that healing
Mhm.
looks like. And I'll
Got
give one
it.
example. It wasn't someone I worked with, but it's a good example. There was a woman who had cancer, and she
Mhm.
wanted her friend to do Reiki on her. And she goes, make sure my hair doesn't fall out. I'm supposed to be getting chemo, or she had been getting chemo. Just make sure my hair doesn't fall out. And her friend goes, well, I can't guarantee that because I don't know what
Yeah.
your healing is supposed to look like. So she did Reiki on her, and her hair
Mhm.
did fall out. So she had to go and get a wig. And then the wig person, they got talking, and she goes, well, there's this study being done for people with your type of cancer, and it's a more natural approach.
Mhm.
And here's the information if you want to go check it out. So she did, and then she went into remission, but she got to use a more natural process than the chemotherapy. But her
Yeah.
hair had to fall out for all that to happen.
Yeah.
So, the Reiki was guiding her. Maybe she thought, well, this wig lady looks good. I think I'll call her up. That actually could have been the Reiki providing her intuition and giving her guidance
Mhm.
to go to that woman. So
Yeah.
Reiki works in all, different types of ways.
Right. That's amazing. Now there's different types of Reiki, right? You're certified in a couple different types. Can you kind of touch base on what that means?
Yeah. The Usui is a very traditional one. A lot of people have heard about that, and that uses the symbols, and there are like set hand positions you're supposed to use
Okay.
for the session. And then when I was in Colorado, I also was introduced to something called Kundalini Reiki,
Okay.
which uses the life force energy in the healing, but also uses earth energy. So it's a very also grounding energy. People that are seeking clarity or need more grounding, it's a good one for that.
Okay.
There was a woman who wanted to get Reiki into the Cleveland hospitals. She was living in Ohio at the time. And she also wanted to make the Kundalini available for continuing education credits. And the nurse was like, that word Kundalini will not do well. So she got permission from the person who developed the Kundalini to kind of repackage it into something called practical Reiki, which is a little bit more user friendly and not, gonna scare people off. And they actually use that at Cleveland on some veterans in some studies. But it's a very simple Reiki. There's no set hand positions. You're not learning symbols. So sometimes people start learning that one first with me because it's not as intimidating.
Okay.
But it has the same results.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by the symbols with the Usui kind? What exactly do you mean by that?
They are, during a Reiki session, there are symbols that were developed by Dr. Usui as part of the healing system. And before you do a Reiki session, you either draw the symbols that you learned while you were learning Reiki. You can visualize those symbols. You can like draw them with your hand. But they activate or like turn on the Reiki, and each symbol has a different meaning behind it. Like one of the symbols represents power. One is an emotional healing symbol. One is a long distance symbol. One is more like spiritual symbol. So each symbol that you use has a different meaning and different use.
Okay, and so this is something you as a facilitator draws before you work with someone?
Yes, and I just draw it with my hand. So there's one that has like 22 strokes. They kind of look like Japanese symbols, I'm sure. But yeah, there's one that has like 22 or 24 strokes. So I also tell my students you can either draw it or visualize it to activate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like just flipping a light switch, that's going to activate the electricity.
Okay, so it's before you work with someone and even meet someone. It's just something that you do, or is it after you meet someone before you start the session?
Right before you start the session.
Okay, so you've already talked to them, and so the symbols kind of are what's coming through to you based on talking to that person and having them lie down and all that, or get their history or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the symbols are just part of what we learned in Reiki, and they're like standard, there's I think 5 different symbols.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So it's part of the opening before I do Reiki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now, how do you become a Reiki master?
You seek out a Reiki teacher, but there are, the way I learned it, there are 3 levels. I had learned Reiki, level 1, level 2, and then my teacher put the master teacher class together. Sometimes teachers separate those. But the Reiki 1 level is you learn how to do healing on yourself and others, but it's in person. So after level 1, you can do healing on yourself or others, but it's got to be in person. And then level 2 is where you learn to do the Reiki long distance. And then level 3 is where you actually learn how to teach it. And so other people can become Reiki practitioners.
Okay, that's wonderful. So now how does this work virtually or long distance?
Yeah, after COVID, then I started doing a lot more remote.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So it is basically the same, but I'm going to, like, if I go step through step, I would call up a person or contact a person. We would set up a time to do the Reiki session. Let's say we were going to do it Monday at 2:00. So I
Yeah.
would give them a reminder the day before. And then like
Mhm.
right before we start the session, I'm going to give them a reminder.
Yeah.
But how it works is the Reiki is an energy and it
Yeah.
has frequency. So it's similar to like a radio broadcast. There's like cell towers and it's going across, it's radio waves moving across, the sky or space. So Reiki is similar. It's very similar. It's like
Mhm.
radio waves that are being broadcast. And for
Okay.
me, like I'm kind of tuning in when I'm tuning into that person, I'm just tuning into the right radio station. So, or like cell phones have a frequency and they're emitting things, or just like a long distance phone call. Like if I'm gonna, we actually, if I'm calling someone long distance on my cell phone, I'm just connecting, that frequency, our frequencies together.
Yeah.
So, but they're going to be, I tell them, because they're not on my table. So I tell them, and we're not really on the phone and we're not on Zoom at this point. So I just tell them to get in a relaxing position. And if our session is going to be 30 minutes, then I just say, set a timer for 30 minutes. So they're not always looking at the clock, like I want them to be relaxed. And they can set whatever environment they want. They can play music. If I were working on someone in person, I'd play music. So they can play music. If they want to light incense, they can. If they just want it peaceful and quiet, if they want to be outside, they can. But I say just whatever peaceful environment you want to create. And then they can just set the intention of receiving the Reiki. And then after the 30 minutes, like let's say we're going to do a 30-minute session, then I would either connect with them on phone or through Zoom. Like I have a client that she gets Reiki every other week. So after our session, we connect on Zoom and then I talk about the different imbalances, any insights I might have received. And then on my end, when you do Reiki long distance, you can either visualize the person in front of you or you can use like a surrogate that represents the person. So I have them right here. I have this bear. I call it the Reiki Bear, but I use this because I'm a tactile person. And so I'll
Mhm.
kind of visualize the person as this bear because my bear has a head, he has like hands, he has feet. So I use this bear and I put my hands on the bear's head and then the heart area and the throat. So it just gives me kind of something concrete to put my hands on that represents that person.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's truly amazing. So now, how can people reach you if they would like to do a session?
They can either use my email, which
Mhm.
is Judith Wade Reiki, which is
Okay.
REIKI at
Okay.
gmail.com,
Okay.
or they can call the old fashioned way,
Mhm.
330-212-1102. They can go to my website too if they want to like learn more about me,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is sacred
Mhm.
expressions.com. If they
Okay.
don't do the hyphen, I think a tattoo parlor in Michigan
Oh,
counts.
geez.
So they can
Okay.
have that hyphen in there.
That's wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you. So I really enjoyed having you as a guest today. Thank you so much for your time and explaining this. This has been absolutely wonderful.
So good.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you
So
for having me.
thank you so much. And to all of you, thank you so much this weekend for joining us on the Weekend Wellness Hour. Can't wait to see you guys next weekend. Have a great weekend. Bye, guys.